Hello, hello, New Haven and Zoom and the internet and wherever y'all are joining us from. Today, this is Arts Respond on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven. I'm your host, Lucy Gellman, and today I'm very excited to be here with the one and only Annie Saylor and Maxim Schmidt. We are talking about a new performance from the Annie Saylor Dance Company that is coming to your community yoga center. I also love that name. um, in Hamden on Friday, November 1st at 7:30 p.m. and Saturday, November 2nd at 4 p.m. Welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for joining me. I know midday on a Friday is not always the easiest time for folks, so I really appreciate both of you.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm extremely happy to be here.
Oh, I'm extremely happy that you're here. So we'll jump right in. Annie, I said this when we were still off mic, but we have a very general listenership. And so I'm wondering for folks who maybe haven't heard of the Annie Saylor Dance Company before, if you can talk a little bit about what it is, who you are, and why this work has been very important for you to center and to celebrate.
Sure. Um, I'm a modern dancer and choreographer and have directed Annie Saylor Dance Company of versions of it since 1983. I've lived in various parts of the country, and from 2001 through 2012 was in New York City, which is where I actually really wanted to be, and I had my company there, um, and then moved up to Hamden, and where I continued to sort of commute to New York and have my company there and be teaching dance classes here. Um, anyway, my work is based in something technically called the Eric Hawkins technique. It's one of several traditional modern dance techniques, which some people are sort of going, I don't know what you're talking about, which I understand, but I sort of need to say that. It's a movement style and way of training the body in which there's sort of a natural range of movement, an emphasis on initiating movement in the pelvis and movement, then moving out through the spine and limbs sequentially. Um, I have trained in that since 1972, uh, and have been teaching it since, I guess, 1978 or something, and continued training. Um, my work, I consider a woman named Nancy Meehan to be my mentor, and she was with the Eric Hawkins Dance Company, and then broke off on her own and continued with this basic technique, but developed her style of choreography was much more in tune with my aesthetics, which was more abstracted. And whereas the Hawkins technique, Eric Hawkins had been with Balanchine and then Martha Graham. Nancy Meehan was sort of often a different, her work always reminded me a little bit more of Merce Cunningham's work, which had a more complete abstract feel, spatially oriented abstract feel to me, which is what I'm more interested in. And so I performed with Nancy for a few years in New York, and then at the same time having my own company, and then continue to develop my own company and work. Um, I my work is I'm also an abstract painter, and my work is very I guess I work in a very parallel way to my painting. I'm in both those sort of disciplines. My work's very, as I say, abstract oriented and spatially oriented, and the spatial relationships are what excite me. And I do feel like there's an innate sense of meaning to abstraction for me, and that I create forms that kind of have a not a that have a nonverbal, dreamlike, sort of illogical sensibility that to me makes sense. They have to feel right on a gut level, not just like a sort of abstract form that is very perfect but sort of empty. It needs to have an emotional uh, essence to it for it to feel right to me, either in a painting or in a choreography. Um, and so, anyway, I've had several groups of dancers in my company that have overlapped. Some I've worked with for a year, some I've worked with for 15 years. And some of my dancers have been very, professional dancers. Some of my dancers have been um, not had a lot of dance training, have been more pedestrian movers. And I've been very interested in working with all these sort of ranges of performers and adjust my work to who I'm working with. Uh, it's important to me to work with dancers who I relate to, who relate to me, who get my aesthetic, and who, um, and so that we have also a serious, fun, engaged time working together. I'm not at all interested in just bossing people around and not having a personal relationship or a rapport with them. On and off, I've had dancers where that happens and it's a disaster, and I have to say, sorry, this is not working. Um, my work very much comes out of working with the specific dancers who I have at the time. Um, and let me see. Can you ask? I'm
Yeah,
sort of
yeah. I
rambling
was just
here.
going to hop in. So
I've had a dance company for a long time, so there's a lot to
I
let.
love that. I love when I talk to folks who are passionate about their work as a writer and reporter as well. I always say it's so much better that someone jumps into wanting to talk about their work than someone just saying like, ah, it's all good. It's
Oh,
which
oh,
I do get from people who say, oh, I like dance. And that's
oh,
sort of
yeah.
all
No,
you're
I have
going
a
to
lot to
get.
say,
Yeah,
but
good. I love that. That's we're all about talking, so I like that. Maxim, I'm gonna ask you, how did you enter this world? And I'm gonna ask, if you can talk about how you said it's been very meaningful to you before we were on, Mike, and I would love to talk about how and why this has been very meaningful to you as someone who I mean, I've seen dance in many forms sort of save the lives of New Haven public school students, of adults, of everyone sort of in between. So I would just love to talk to you about your involvement in this performance.
Yeah, so I have known Annie since 2019, and we have worked together on and off on a handful of projects, both in terms of her abstract painting and in terms of her dance company. And one of the things that has always really drawn me to Annie, besides Annie herself, because we just see each other, we've always seen each other very clearly and got each other fairly immediately. And so it's so easy to work and talk and do anything with Annie. Um, and beyond being completely compelled by her abstract art, I know nothing about dance. It is an art form that I truly, even like obviously I have a more deep understanding now working so closely, Annie, but truly I find that I am the most magnetized towards mediums that I know nothing about. Like I am the worst ceramicist you will ever meet in your life, so I love ceramics. But so specifically in terms of getting to work, because I've been doing a lot of marketing development with Annie. I've been documenting the performances because I work in videography now. Just bought my first big boy video camera, very exciting. Um, and being able to witness what the dance company has put together, specifically as someone who has always felt very close to Annie's artistic process, has just been a really eye-opening and deeply enriching experience for me to the point where being able to be a part of this has gotten me back in my own studio. I was not making any work for a very, very long time. And having the privilege to get to work with Annie every week and get to witness something so the dances that Annie has been developing in the overall practice of Annie Sailor Dance Company has such a completely compelling and hypnotic quality to it that it has just inherently been so inspiring for me. and getting to have the privilege to learn about dance from someone who is so well decorated, so completely embodied in their practice, and creating just such visually unbelievable work has been really, really just great. To say it's great is a massive understatement. Um, and Annie and I also being close adds another level of just total depth to the relationship that we have together, both professionally and personally. Um, we always start any of our meetings with just sort of debriefing each other on what's going on. How was your week? It's good to see you, in a way that, I live with my partner, but sometimes on less social job days, I don't get to talk to people really with that sort of depth. And so we hit it with that, and then we go right into the sort of artistic mindset. Um, and it's, even though I don't know even a slice of how much Annie knows about dance, I have such a deep appreciation for it now that it's been a life-changing experience for me in a way that I don't think I fully even anticipated coming in. And I'm just really grateful for both the collaboration and creative mentorship I've received from working with Annie, and also just the quality of our friendship. It's it's indescribable, and I just really appreciate it. And so that's why I've been so gung-ho about the performance, because I truly believe in everything that she and the dancers have been working on.
Has it also changed your relationship with movement? Like, yeah, so I know that you said I don't dance, I'm not a dancer, but everyone dances.
Yes.
I believe that. Whether it's like in your bedroom or in the shower, which sounds like maybe not the safest thing to do, um, or out in public. And I think those folks who dance in a studio and in front of the audience are the perhaps the bravest among us. So you said it's changed your relationship to movement. I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, as someone who has always felt really disconnected from my body in many ways, including just the baseline fact that I am a trans person, but also as someone who was deeply depressed growing up and just didn't really move nearly as much as I should have, I have always felt sort of a clunky relationship in terms of bodily awareness in that way, in the way that I move. And one of the things that impresses me the most as a non-dancer watching Annie Saylor's dance company perform, and in even just rehearsing the improvs and everything, is the paying attention to not only their own bodies, but one another in a way where the spatial relationships are so completely candid and fluid and beautiful, in a way that I say that to Annie a lot, where I'm like, I can't believe the way that everyone is not only so in tune with every part of their body, but also so in tune with every part of everyone else's body, to where there's just this fluidity of movement in space. And I have I have been, for sort of the fun of dancing more, but even more than that, I've really tried to, because I've started working out and other sort of physical activity. It's been a big thing for me this year. Um, and I've applied that desire to have even a slice of that bodily awareness to any sort of physical activity I'm doing with my body, in again, just a more deep, enriched way. Um, and it's made me appreciate that I don't have that in a very where I'm like, when I go to the dance rehearsals, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that there are people that are able to do these things with their bodies, and I feel like such a clunky little man. In a way that wants makes me want to challenge myself more to be more embodied in that way.
So Annie, I do want
Yeah.
to ask about this specific work that will be introduced during this performance. But first, I love a good story. And I want to ask, like, have you been dancing since you were like a wee little one? Or what turned you on? What was the catalyst for you?
Well, I started dancing when I was very, very little. I don't know if it was kindergarten or around then. And I both started dancing just sort of on my own, I think, and then started in first grade. I started taking ballet classes, and at a very young age, I mean, it was around then also, I started choreographing and making up dances. I didn't know what the word choreography meant, but with friends, and sometimes there'd be tap dances, sometimes there'd be I don't know, all kinds of stuff that we'd sort of more musical theater kind of movement. And I continued to do that and continued to take at first ballet classes, then some jazz classes, some and in finally in I ended up in seventh or eighth, I think in eighth grade, deciding I really hated ballet and that I felt sort of silly doing it and very restricted. And my mother, who I'm amazed she did this because she hated dance, but she found a modern dance class for me. And it was a modern dance workshop in Washington, D.C. for teenagers with a woman named Erica Timai. And so I started doing that. And it was really wonderful. It was more the kind of movement I was interested in, and we did performances. And so I continued sort of actually setting up performances on a very small scale and, with my friends and uh, just dancing, throughout my childhood and teenage years. And as an adult, I mean, starting in college, I've did it very seriously and have done it, ever since then very seriously. But what do I want to say? I grew up in a very dysfunctional situation and with a lot of trauma in my life. And until a while ago, I still believed that I was dancing and painting because I was too stupid to do anything else. And which sounds sort of weird to say, but in the last few years realized, no, this is what I always really wanted to do. And despite all the problems I had, I really did it from the time I was little and continued doing it and pursued it and, made this my life despite this. So to me, that's been a really exciting, wonderful realization has been very important to me. Uh, and I'm sort of shifting gears here, but this is sort of in reference to what Maxim was saying, and I hadn't addressed this. Uh, in addition to set choreography, a lot of the work that I've done, especially in the last 20 years, has been structured improvisational work, and both as process and performance. And in the performance that we will be giving, I've created one long, very complex choreographed piece for the company and that we've been working on for about 2 years. And then we're presenting 3 structured improvisations that I'm extremely excited about, that I'm calling them images. Each one's an image. So we create sort of an image with particular clothing, a particular movement structure, and then we move based on these sort of imagery and in relationship to each other and to sometimes their materials we're working with. And what comes out of it is extremely strange, sort of nonverbal, dreamlike, illogical, but beautiful connected forms that are very strange and that interest me tremendously and also remind me of both cinema and a moving painting. So I just needed to make sure this was in there because Maxim has also been able to, who is clearly very articulate, speak about this work when he's seen it in ways that I was like, I'm going, you've got it exactly right. I can't believe you see exactly what we're doing and are able to articulate it. Thank you. And so that's been extremely exciting to me to have him be able to perceive immediately what we're doing and be able to not go, what in the world are you doing up there? But go, wow, I see exactly what you're doing. So that's been really exciting to work with him, knowing that he gets what I'm doing aesthetically.
Yeah, I love that. I also just want to recognize, if anyone's listening to this or folks go on to see this performance on Friday, November 1st at 7:30 p.m. or Saturday, November 2nd at 4 p.m. at your community yoga center in Hamden. Um, the fact that you said that for years, and this like hurts my heart, you believed that you did the creative and performing arts because you were uh, sort of unable intellectually to do other things. And I hear that I spend a significant amount of time in the schools, and sometimes I hear that from kids as well as adults. And so I just want to uphold that, like, I truly believe that artists, in addition to being like the truth tellers among us, are doing like the most intellectually. It just especially when folks are doing art forms that have sort of they communicate but in a nonverbal way. That's just totally amazing to me. So I just want to lift that up for anyone who is listening and for you. And I'm so glad that you do what you do. And I hope that you know how just incredible it is. Um, so I do want to talk about this new work and the genesis of it. It is titled Fall Down Past My Shoulder, Weighted with Light, which is beautiful. Like that's a whole poem right there. Um, and maybe like a sapphic. I think about the fragments of Sappho. Um, and that just feels like something that you might fall upon. But tell me about the genesis of this work. So you said it's been sort of cooking for the better part of 2 years.
Yeah, I have now since COVID, well, when COVID happened, I really sort of stopped working with my group in New York and shifted, well, for a while to Zoom and just like everybody else, teaching classes and actually choreographed a piece on Zoom. We were all in our bedrooms and living rooms doing it, and that is not the piece that we're working on now, but that was something to just keep us moving. But since then, my company is now just based in New Haven or in the New Haven area, and it is a group of dancers who have been studying with me for lots of them for several years. Some of them danced with me when I was here in the 80s for 3 years and had a studio on Chapel Street, and I taught and had a dance company. Some of them danced with me then. I went away and came back 30 years later, and they're dancing with me now. So it's like, I mean, we're not 20-year-olds, but we're an extremely powerful group of dancers. And there's 6 members and me, 6 women. Not that I wouldn't have men in the group, it's just there aren't any right now. And a few of them have joined a few years ago, started dancing with me a few years ago. But anyway, we have a long history of them studying technique with me, and a lot of the movement in this dance that you're talking about, that we'll be performing, the movement. A lot of the material has developed during class when I developed different movement sequences and phrases of material. And so we've been collecting them, playing around with them. And when we rehearse, for instance, what I do is I have sort of ideas and images, but basically it's a process of experimentation and exploring different combinations of material. So we'll take one phrase of material, repeat it a few times, maybe do it in canon, maybe have 2 people do that phrase, 3 other people do another phrase of movement, then have everybody go into something, different movements individually, doing separate movements, come back into something in unison. And then we'll have that as a little section. Then we'll develop something else. So we have all these different sections. It's like, and then we sort of splice them together. and then cut and paste and try them in all these different orders, like a big collage in time. And until the order and as we go on, I'm developing new material all the time. And then we add that in, and until it's a balanced piece, it feels like kind of this big sort of, I'm not a classical music person, but it feels sort of like a big symphony orchestra to me piece. It's interesting. But there's a balance of the structure of the piece that to me I'm extremely happy and excited about. The piece is about 22 minutes long, and I'd actually thought it was going to be longer, but I mean, it doesn't, it's fulfilled its length itself. So it's come into its own and has fulfilled its identity. And it feels very cinematic. There are references to nature. It's not like we're trying to be the wind or anything, but there's the feel of sort of the relationships of, there'll be stillness and then movement, almost like water moving or a bird flying, something being still, and then everything happening at once, moving at once. There are references to intimacy and emotional closeness and coziness. There's not really a sort of a romantic kind of an element to this piece at all, or a lover kind of reference. It's more just closeness, on a more friendship or close family, or that kind of a feel to me in it. To me, it has a sense of empowerment and beauty and strength, that, and an excitement that we're all women dancing, and at not sort of the age that most people think of dancers dancing, but we're also not doing things where we look silly. We're not trying to like be, do Rockette movement. We're 20 years or what we're doing works really well. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, I don't know if
Yeah,
that helps.
it does. It does. Maxim, I want to ask you, I'm really interested in the process of witness and documentation, maybe because that's a big part of my job. But for you, how has it been? You talked a little bit about this, but to come in and experience this work, which I think is sometimes a very rare thing that you've gotten to do, to sort of see this as it evolves and as it blooms.
I am, excuse me, I am a deeply process fascinated person, so I do really feel spoiled rotten that I get sort of to peek behind the curtain and see what's going on. Um, I am also very creatively anal about the type of documentation I do. Usually when I go to, like the last time I went to rehearsal, I set up two camcorders. I was walking around the entire rehearsal with my phone. I was checking everything constantly because I don't want, I guess in my mind, also as an artist myself, I want to provide documentation that is more than just flat documentation, and that really appreciates on even just a movement of cameras level, the movement that it is documenting in a space. And one of the things that I learned very quickly is documenting dance and documenting movement is an entirely different ball game. And in the same way that dance as a medium I'm unfamiliar with has been really cool to sort of unfold within. I've loved learning how to, oop, there's the cat, um, really understand how best to show movement in a way that the video itself makes you come alive in the space. I'm a huge believer in video as an immersive medium, and I wanted to make sure that I could provide like a sort of straight shot so that Annie could review in sort of tweak rehearsals, etc., for the sake of corresponding with the dancers, etc. But I also wanted to create something as beautiful as what the dancers were doing. Um, And it's hard, again, to not be inspired to be creative in a space that is already teeming with creative energy, especially because the cohesion of these dancers and the way that they're able to wordlessly communicate in in the moments of like actually being in the improvisational process, in even just the most technical ends, it being able to be present in something that is so present is incredible. I just absolutely love it. And I do again just feel really spoiled to get to be sort of the fly on the wall as everything happens. Because the same way that like it's why I love open studios in terms of visual art in New Haven is everyone's opening their door and you're seeing whatever they are able to transform their spaces in a million different ways, but you're getting that behind the scenes, like what does this day to day actually look like for you potentially? Um,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, I think that's it.
oh, okay. I'm so sorry I interrupted. Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my next question. Annie, how does it feel to sort of fling open the doors after this process of gestation, and care, like deep care for this work, and it sounds like care for the other dancers and collaboration, right? I love that you said you're not someone who just wants to like yell orders at people.
No, not
that
at all.
that you're very interested in working collaboratively with this
Yeah.
group. How does it feel then we're about a week away. We're a week away,
I
right?
know.
Maybe a week and a couple hours.
I'm mainly
Yes.
extremely excited. I'm on and off anxious, a little nervous, but mainly very excited. I feel part of me is sort of like, oh no, it's going to be over. But part of me is also like, well, this is, I've performed my work enough to know, uh, and also with this group to know, okay, although this is the first time we're doing it with this group, really, okay, we do this performance and then we continue. It's not like this is the end of the world or this is the end. This I'm trying to think of it as part of a process. So and actually, the process of the rehearsal process, putting the pieces together is equally important, if not more important to me than the performance itself. And not that I'm not terribly excited about it. And I do feel like it's a whole thing in and of itself. But the rehearsal process is an amazing experience and a very wonderful experience. And we've all felt that way. And so I don't feel like we're just rehearsing just for the performance. It's all been wonderful. So I mean, I'm seeing, okay, after the performance, we'll continue with class. We'll keep going over the dance, and I'll try to find some more venues for a performance. So, and then we'll start working on something new. Um, so, I'm really excited. I'm very excited and proud of myself, of the work, and of all the dancers, and extremely happy that and honored that Maxim's been involved. And as I couldn't have done all this without Maxim. I mean, I don't do any of the publicity, PR work well myself. And he's just been invaluable and made all the difference in the world. So the stress level has been reduced so I can focus on what I need to do.
I love that. And also, how does it feel to be, to be back? You said that at one point New York was really where you wanted your practice to
Yeah.
be. Um, and I, and you're here, right?
Yeah, for a long time, I mean, for a number of years, I felt very ambivalent, like I was going back and forth. And um, I feel very happy being here now and sort of settled and uh, extremely happy with my group of dancers here. And that I feel like, okay, this is where I am now. And that being in New York and with my company there, it was amazing. And I'm extremely happy I got to do that. But it was for many reasons time to move on. And it sort of took care of itself, and we did. And I mean, and it sort of circumstances just sort of changed, and we needed to come up here. So I'm very happy being here, and I'd like to take my work back to New York again. So that's one, one place I'm going to be checking out in terms of bringing some of the work back there again. But again, it's the idea of being in New York, on the one hand, you think, oh, New York. On the other, it's like having been there and it's not like I was well known. I mean, I was known within a certain sort of group of dancers and choreographers, but I don't have a romantic idea about dancing in New York. It's like, okay, we can do it in New York, or we could do it here, we could do it there. It's not like this is sort of the end all to perform in New York anymore. I mean, we're not going to be at Lincoln Center. You know what I mean? We're doing sort of more, there are all kinds of venues, downtown venues, which are the kind of place where I would perform.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not that interested in like what's happening at Lincoln Center. Sorry if that
Well, I'm
sounds
not either.
blasphemous.
I'm
No,
not,
but
uh,
I mean I think that often those smaller venues where sometimes grassroots work that is moving out of the box, work that's thinking
mhm,
differently, and work that isn't adhering to this very narrow convention of dance. You sort of mentioned it just
yeah.
offhand, but I think dance, there are other fields like this, gymnastics, really anything where the female body can become a commodity.
Mhm.
And like you only want, and by saying you, I'm not talking about me. There's this idea that like if you're a fit young woman of a certain age, it's okay, and then you age out of the practice, which of course is totally bullspit, right?
Right.
Um, and so I'm interested in like what y'all are doing now.
Yeah.
And if you
Well,
end up at Lincoln Center, that's cool too.
yeah, I know. I feel that way too. And the other thing that's always been sort of people have been confused in the dance world by my work is that I am based in the Eric Hawkins technique technically, but choreographically, a lot of my work is very experimental and not. I mean, some of it is more aesthetically in line with, I guess, his choreography, but I don't really. I mean, initially, what, 30 years ago, I related more to his choreography. I don't really relate to that. But people, because I'm in that technique, assume my choreography is sort of connected to him. I'm really a more of an much more experimental choreographer. Although the technically we train in this in this technique. So a lot of people don't understand that or don't know enough. Well, I don't mean to, they don't understand the difference between technique and aesthetics of a style, and sort of can't imagine putting two things together like that. At least that's been my experience. They don't understand how I could do that. But in fact, that's what I'm doing. And to me, it's much more interesting.
Yeah, so I also
I don't
did.
have any interest in copying another choreographer or sort of being in a certain cult of following in line with somebody. I'm interested in doing my own work.
So I am interested. Yeah, I wanted to ask about this also as a practice of like ritual, right?
Mhm.
And I don't mean that as attached to any sort of like faith or spirituality or religion, although certainly if the arts are where people pray or get their spiritual fulfillment, I'm all about that. Um, but for you, tell me also just about this practice as a form of ritual, maybe as a form of care in this world that feels like totally upturned by all the things right now, right? We're in the middle of a very divisive election cycle. There is violence across the globe and at home. Um, and I love that you're holding space for this work.
Well, I feel like dance and painting, both taking class, teaching and choreographing and performing and painting, or creating assemblage installation work, has always been what a very grounding base for me, and a very it has been, it's both of those have allowed me to survive enormous problems growing up and pain. And um, and gives both of all of that gives me enormous joy. Uh, I love teaching, and I mean, doing this sort of almost daily as a ritual of sort of entering my body, grounding my body, becoming, opening up the body and sort of develop, having this sort of awareness sort of move through me, and being able to teach that and help people open their bodies and sort of let go of alignment habits, for instance, or movement habits that are causing problems for them, and be able to start moving in a very integrated way is extremely exciting to me. And so by doing this kind of work, uh, it's and also the improvisational work, it's to me it's very grounding, and to me it would be the equivalent of, I guess, going to church, or, to my it's a very spiritual practice for me as well. And although I don't usually use that term, but it's and it feels like this is what I can offer in the world to people, and that this is what I do. And to me it feels very positive, and uh that I can help people in this way. So,
Maxim, I want to ask you the same question, um, because you are an artist and an arts practitioner and an art maker.
I think so. I think for a long time, part of the reason why I wasn't making work, was because, how do I word this? I, in times of extreme stress and peril, which I have publicly and privately gone through a lot in the last couple of years, um, my response is to meet that total feeling of lack of control with what pain can I inflict on myself that I can control, which is grim, frankly. And I think in a large way, I was so overwhelmed by both my microcosm of chaos and the world at large in chaos, and just took that out on completely squashing any creativity that I was really participating in, because nothing can hurt me worse than I can hurt me, even if I don't realize I'm doing it as I'm doing it. Um, and so and I think my stepping back into taking care of that part of me, or using art as a channel to cope and also to share something better with the world and the people around me, is with artists like I do with Annie, because I'm very, very comfortable helping people and using my like arts admin curator toolkit to help artists. That I feel very comfortable with and I feel very strongly about, which is why I do the white work that I do one-on-one with artists and do things like co-curating at the Institute Library, etc. Um, but me giving myself permission to love and care for my own artistic practice in the same way has been a door that has been a million times easier to open because of Annie. Because I know that I'm consistently going to be inspired week to week. She sees my work in a very crystal clear way where we've been able to sort of riff off each other. And I'm like, wait, I know what I want to do now. Like, she's working with the assemblages to accompany her exhibition. I got back into doing my assemblage work because I was like, wow, like I'm back in this world and back in this sort of mindset again. Um, and because being around work that I feel so strongly about, both in terms of Annie's paintings and in terms of the dance practice, I it was really hard for me to then stay away from the studio. Um, so I feel like I'm finally getting back into, I will continue to obviously I'm a community guy. Let's be for real. But I also am glad that I'm finally letting myself have that outlet again, in the same way that I get so excited to provide that outlet for other people. Um, and that's been a big moment of sort of personal self-growth for me too. But again, I couldn't do it in the same way Annie's like, I couldn't do what I'm doing right now without Max doing I couldn't be back in the studio if it wasn't for the pushing that I've sort of inadvertently gotten through working with Annie. Um,
That's so
it's so
nice.
cool. Hmm?
That's so nice.
I know, I
Also, I
love
mean,
this.
it's awesome. I mean, it's the truth. I think that was one of the things I said to preface like us showing together for Open Studios is it just made so much sense. And so much of my current like now present practice is was catalyzed because I was
Mm,
so inspired of what I was doing with Annie.
I love
Um,
that.
it's awesome. I feel so lucky, like so completely and totally lucky.
So as we wind down, and if folks are just joining us, I'm sorry because you've missed a great conversation that you should go back and listen to. I am talking to Annie Saylor and Maxim Schmidt about an upcoming performance from the Annie Saylor Dance Company on Friday, November 1st at 7:30 p.m. and Saturday, November 2nd at 4 p.m. at your community yoga center in Hamden. If you're saying to yourself, I don't know where that is, it's located at 39 Putnam Avenue on the second floor. And I'll have Harry Droz, who is the angelic station manager and the man behind the magic, share out that information. The last question I always like to ask artists is how it can be within, but also outside of your practice. How are you taking care of yourself?
Um, I'm taking care of myself by being I've been in therapy for I don't know the last really therapy with an amazing therapist for the last I don't know if it's 7 years or something. I have to count, but she has helped me tremendously. It's EMDR therapy, and it has really helped me change my life. And I've had therapy throughout my life on and off, and it was sort of like little band-aids here and there. But I really feel like I've understand now what happened to me, the trauma that I went through. I've re-experienced a lot of it and understand it, and I've been able to let go of the sort of the pain it's caused me, or the triggering effect. And I'm feeling at peace with myself, which has been absolutely wonderful. And so that's been great. And then just continuing to dance, um, be close with be in touch with my daughter and um, my family and friends, and to be dancing and painting and continuing to sort of do what I do. That's what I do, and that's how I take care of myself. I'm sort of boring. I just do the same thing every day.
You're
I
not
actually
Been
boring.
doing anything.
I really don't think that's boring. And I've said this before on these airwaves. I think everyone should be in therapy. I'm really big on therapy. So I'm glad that you also lifted that up. Maxim, I'm going to throw it to you and then let's close out.
You got it. I also have a great therapist. Shout out Dr. Maloney. I've been with that dude for like 15 years. Wouldn't be here without him. Love him. Um, I think besides getting back in the studio, which has literally, I've said to my therapist, has been a whole new chapter for me in terms of me kind of getting my feet back on the ground again. I lost my grandma at the very, very beginning of this year, who was the most important person in my life. And one of the things that I've done to not just keep her legacy alive, but to take care of myself is I make sure that she's a part of my day every single day. And so that has been something that has been a huge self-care and care for her action that I've implemented sort of over the last year. I talk about her all the time. I view we most of my studio is from her. Like a lot of the supplies that she had, she passed on to me, etc. I have an amazing partner who makes it very easy on the days that I struggle to take care of myself to sort of remind me what I need to do to take care of myself. I have amazing friends, including Annie, and I've been really good in the last couple of years about setting boundaries. I think that that is something, if I could get everyone to do one thing besides go get a therapist, is do learn how to create healthy boundaries for yourself and learn what that looks like for you. Um, and they also learn what your capacity is. Like, as someone who works a million different jobs and can easily burn out, if I didn't have professional boundaries and also personal boundaries that keep my personal life functional in the midst of everything else I'm doing, I would be going even more nuts than I already am. But I think, and I think I have a good toolkit for keeping my feet on the ground overall. Also, as you saw, I have two very adorable cats who on my absolute worst day are nothing but balls of unconditional love. And it, pets mean everything to me. And I have plants and I collect Garfield. I have a lot of silly things in my life that make my life better even when everything seems very, very bleak or I'm exhausted. Um, Self-care is enormously important, and even though I've confessed in this episode that I'm not always the best at it, um, it's to say it's a game changer is a huge understatement.
Can
I
I just
am.
plug in? I'd like to say that my therapist's name is Dr. Sharon Clayman. I'd like to
Oh no, we might have lost her.
share.
Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
she's back. Yay. Annie, you were frozen for a second, but you're
Oh,
back,
I
which
was.
feels good.
Can I repeat this? What I
You
just
said
said?
Dr. Sharon Clayman.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I just would like to say her name so to
I
give her
wanted
credit.
to thank both of you so much for being with me here today on Arts Respond. That's our time. We will be doing another episode. We should be doing another episode or like 5 episodes about boundaries. So Maxim, maybe you can come back on
I would love that.
and just talk about healthy boundary keeping, talk about therapy, minding your mental, all the good things, right?
All
Um,
that good stuff.
so y'all can find the Annie Sailor Dance Company. I was saying it too quickly. Harry will drop the link on the Facebook for WNHH Community Radio. Their performance is November 1st at 7:30 p.m. or November 2nd at 4 p.m. at your community yoga center. Again, we'll drop the RSVP link. Thank you both for joining me on this Friday, and it's a beautiful sunny day. I hope that you enjoy some time in nature.
Thank you,
Thank you
Lucy,
so much for having us, Lucy.
so
Thank
much. Yeah.
you. Take care, y'all.
Take care.